Hey everyone, it's Michael
And Jill
from notefolds.com, and today we're going to show you this desktop organizer that also looks like a book.
It is beach themed, and we just wanted to bring you one last beach themed product before we really launch into the holidays, and we can't wait to show you how to put these together.
You can see I've got two other ones here because you can put them all together as you saw in the image at the start of the video and make a 3-compartment desk organizer. You can really play around with this. And well, let's go ahead and get started, Jill. Before we introduce the cardstock and chipboard that you'll be needing for this project, I just want to point out that we actually distressed all of the paper that you'll see in this project using our Tim Holtz Distress Ink Vintage Photo and then the Ranger blending tool. So Jill, what pieces of paper will we need?
Well, to do this project, you will need 2 pieces of 5.5 by 6.5 for the front and back cover. You'll need 1 piece of 2 3/4 by 5 for the inside of the spine. 2 pieces of 3 5/8 by 4 3/4 for the inside of the front and back cover. 1 piece that measures 2 inches by 11 inches. And 1 piece that measures 2 inches by 4 inches. And that is for the book closer.
Okay, so there's our cardstock. How about the chipboard?
For the chipboard, you need 2 pieces of 4 inches by 5 inches for the front and back cover. And you'll also need 2 pieces of 2 inches by 4 3/4, and that is for the book closer. The last piece of paper that you'll need is either a decorative piece of paper or a tag, and today we are using a piece from Graphic 45 by the Sea, and I know it's the end of summer, so we wanted to bring in one more beach project before we switch into holiday mode. And the size of this paper is 4 inches by 6 inches.
As you can see, I added score tape to the back of all of the chipboard, and I only did this on one side.
And the measurement for the score tape is 1/2 inch. And when you're using score tape, you want to make sure to get a good brand for it because some of the discount brands just aren't quite as sticky, and you want to make sure that the paper will stick to your chipboard forever, so this project will last a really long time. The cardstock that you need to use to adhere to the chipboard are your 2 pieces of the 5.5 by 6.5 inch cardstock.
And what I want to note is I'm turning this over so the distress side is down. And you can see I actually made some marks along the edges at 3/4 inch. You don't have to do this, but I find that it helps me center the chipboard directly inside of the cardstock. So we're just going to remove the score tape.
And again, anytime paper is touching chipboard, you want to use the score tape as opposed to just regular snail adhesive or any other glue. You want to use the score tape. It's really good sticky stuff, but remember, it is unforgiving. So once you stick your chipboard down, it's down. There is no twisting it, removing it, anything like that.
And that's exactly why I drew the marks around the edge of the paper. There we are, and then I'll just repeat that on the other one. So here we have the chipboard firmly adhered to the back of that cardstock, and then we're going to run some score tape around all 4 edges. And here is the cardstock after we've put the score tape all the way around the edges, and we're actually going to, I think we should miter these edges. What do you think, Jill?
I agree. I think it'll make it so when you fold the paper onto the cardboard, there will be less bulkiness, and I think it'll create a really nice, clean, smooth fold line.
So I'm just going to zoom in here so that you can see a little bit better what I'm going to do. I've got a shim here that I made, which is actually just 2 pieces of chipboard glued together. And we're going to be using this throughout the project, but what you can do is just put it right up to the edge of the chipboard on your cardstock, and then we're going to simply draw a diagonal line. And then we'll end up cutting on that diagonal line. Here it is after I cut it, and notice that the cut line does not go all the way down to the corner of the chipboard, and you'll see why when we end up folding them over. All you need to do now is repeat it on the other 3 sides and then on the other piece of cardstock and chipboard. And here it is after I mitered all the edges on the cardstock and chipboard combination. I'm going to just move one of these out of the way because now we're going to fold the edges over, and Jill's got a really good tip on how to do this.
When you remove the backing to the score tape, what you're going to do is you're going to press the cardboard down and into your cardstock. That way you get a nice straight even line. This is a better technique than if you were to take your cardstock and try to flip it over the chipboard, because I think that it would become a little like creased or bulky, or maybe some bumps would get in there. And you see how perfect that turned out for Michael, and it really is a very snug, straight, clean fit.
So all you got to do now is just repeat that on the other 3 sides, and then of course do it for your other chipboard and cardstock combination. Here it is completed with those nice mitered edges, and you can see how that gives it a really nice effect. So I'm glad we did that, Jill.
Very clean, very nice, and very crisp.
I've got the 4x6 graphic piece of paper that we're going to use, and on the other side, this is going to all be covered up, so don't worry if there's nothing on the back of your paper. But if you notice, I actually ended up marking at 1/2 inch all the way around, and this again is just going to help me line up these pieces when we're going to eventually attach them to there. But before we can do that, we need to put score tape all the way around all 4 edges.
And for this size of score tape, you are going to use a 1/4 inch score tape, not the 1/2 inch.
You can see that I put the 1/4 inch score tape all the way around all 4 edges, and I zoomed in a little bit here because the next thing that we're going to do is attach these to the graphic paper. And let's go ahead and remove the score tape here.
What Michael is doing now is creating the outside of the book. And I know it seems a little backwards when you're watching, but it really does make the spine of the book and the front and back cover, and I think it is a good technique.
So you notice I only removed the score tape on the outer edge. I'm leaving it on the top and bottom there. I'm going to just center the cover right in between those lines that I made at 1/2 inch. So you can see it's centered between the top and bottom there. And then we'll remove the score tape on the other side. And again, we're just going to place that cover right in between the lines.
Very neat and precise. Now we're going to take the piece of distressed paper that measures 2 3/4 by 5 inches, and that is for the inside of the spine. Michael's already put down some adhesive, and this is just going paper to paper, so in this case tape runner or another preferred adhesive would be alright. You do not need to use score tape for this particular paper to paper adhesion.
And what I want to note here is that I'm lining the top and bottom up with that line I made at 1/2 inch, and you're going to notice that there is kind of an 1/8 inch border that's going to be on the sides of this piece in the spine, and that's because your bookends are eventually going to fold over that. So that's okay, that's not a mistake. I'm going to go ahead and remove the other backing on the score tape that's at the top and the bottom of the graphic paper.
Now, unfortunately, since the chipboard pieces don't go all the way across, Michael is going to have to kind of manipulate the paper a little bit to get a really nice, perfect fold. He'll be able to use the corners of the chipboard for a little guidance, but in the center, you kind of just have to press it down and get it as straight and clean as you can.
I think that turned out just fine.
Yeah.
Go ahead and do the bottom here. And you can notice that you'll notice that I am starting at the edges here, because that helps me make sure that I get it perfectly lined up on the edge. So now I can just flatten it down the center. As you can see, I've put some 1/2 inch score tape right down the center of the chipboard, because now we need to bring in, what size are these, Jill?
Those are...
Nobody knows.
3 5/8 by 4 3/4.
They're going to be the last 2 pieces of cardstock, so it shouldn't be too hard to figure out. Now on the other side, I did just do some normal tape runner around the edges, because that's going to just touch here on the paper. So let me go ahead and remove the adhesive backing from the score tape. And then I'm going to center this
Nicely done.
right on there. Now you notice it doesn't go edge to edge, but that is just fine. And it's going to be on the inside, so you're not going to really be able to see it. We'll just do the other side.
And notice that Michael is also covering the corners of the pieces of paper of the decorative tag that he folded over before.
Now, let's just turn this over for the big reveal. This is actually the outside of the book, and you can see we're going to end up bending it like that, and that will be kind of the spine of your book. But we also now need to make the back edges of this book, so let's do that.
To make the bottom and outside edge of the book, we are going to need our piece of cardstock that is 2 inches by 11 inches.
And I'm turning it daubered side down.
And we're also going to need 2 of our chipboard pieces that measure 2 inches by 4 3/4.
And we're going to remove the adhesive backing here, and we're going to put one of them right toward the bottom. It doesn't matter which one, but you're going to put it right edge to edge on that 11-inch piece of paper. Okay? And remember that 2-piece shim that we had earlier when we were mitering the edges? Remember, that's just 2 pieces of chipboard glued together. We're going to be using that here to separate the 2 pieces of chipboard.
And the reason you do this is because when you put this piece onto your project, it'll make an L shape, and if you were to put your chipboard edge to edge, then it wouldn't bend, and that is kind of defeating the purpose.
Okay, so you see there that I've got both pieces of chipboard down, separated by the 2-piece shim, and I'll just remove that. And now you can see that there's an edge there. And the reason for that is we're eventually going to fold that over, just like Jill said. Now this is still our 2 by 11-inch piece of paper with the 2 pieces of chipboard on it. I just zoomed in a little bit here to show you that I put some score tape right at the edge here, and I'm just going to peel that off. And we're going to fold this edge over top of here. And again, we can use our method that we learned before from Jill. Just line that up, fold it over.
Get a nice, crisp, clean fold.
Turn it back, and there you can see we've got that over top. Now, before we move on from here, we're going to take our last piece of paper, which is what dimension, Jill?
That would be...
It's 2 by 4. I'll help her out there, folks. And what we're going to do is, again, we need to put some score tape on the back of here, and then we're going to attach it right there. So here's that 2 by 4 piece of paper, and I've got my score tape on there, and we'll just remove the backing. And then we're going to place it directly onto the chipboard, aligning it up with the edges. And there we are. So I'm still working here with that 2 by 11 piece of paper. So for the uncovered piece of chipboard, I'm actually going to take my hole punch here. This is the 2-inch diameter one, and no, we're not going to run it through the big shot. All we're going to do is line it up right at that edge there, and we're just going to trace around it because we're going to end up cutting off that part of the chipboard. So go ahead and trim off the edges there. So there it is trimmed, and Jill, do you know why we trimmed it into a kind of semicircle there?
I sure do. It's to make the rounded piece of the bookend look nice and crisp, of course.
All right, well, let's go ahead and do that. Now, actually, before we get to putting the book together for the last step, you may elect to stamp something on the front and the back of your book, and you can see I've got this To the Beach stamp here, which is actually from the same maker. Is that right, Jill?
It is. It is also a Graphic 45 product. It is one of 3 coordinating stamp sets that goes with the By the Sea paper. That was very good planning on their part.
Okay, there we go. I'm actually not going to put anything on the back side. Okay, Jill, do you know what time it is?
It's assembly time!
Okay, so we've got our edge of the book here. We've got face down. We're going to turn our book over. Make sure you have it oriented the right way. And what we're going to do is just run some glue right along that edge. And what I'm using today is the Scotch quick dry adhesive. Definitely want the quick drying
It
aspect.
does dry quick. It takes about a minute to hold it, or when you're holding it together initially. And once you have it all assembled, you are going to want to let it set overnight so it really gets a good permanent bond.
You can see I'm just kind of running it along the edge here, as best I can. Might have a little bit of leakage, but luckily it dries clear and no one's going to see on the inside anyway. Okay, so we're going to line it up right on the edge here. Okay, this is the very tense moment of the project.
Perfect alignment.
Okay, I think that looks good, so I'm just going to hold it here for 60 seconds, but I'll speed it up so you don't have to sit through this. Okay, so here we are 1 minute later, and it's somewhat dry. Again, like Jill said, overnight. I'm just going to test fit this, and what you'll see is that this edge is going to follow that curve that we cut earlier. You want to make sure it's nice and tightly wrapped around there. So that's how it's going to end up being. I think that looks good.
That
Jill?
looks excellent.
All right. So let's get some glue running around the edge here. And again, we're going to make sure that that is wrapping around nice and tight. And then all of our edges are lining up. And then again, we'll just hold it in place for about a minute. And we're back. And it's fully dry. Well, at least it's dry for 60 seconds. But again, we'll let it sit overnight. So here is the finished product. I don't know if you can see down in there, but we've got a nice little container. And then you can see it's got the book edge there. And like we showed you at the top of the video, you can make multiples. How many do we have, Jill?
We have 3, and I thought that makes a really nice set. You can do either like a gift set or decorative bookends like that, so it's just kind of cute. And you could put it on your desk if you wanted to, make a desk organizer. Either way, you end up with 3 really, really cute projects, and I hope that you have enjoyed learning with us today on how to assemble these boxes.
And remember that you can go to our website, notefolds.com, to get all the measurements as well as links to the products that we used in the video today. We hope to see you next time.